Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. Now, every day on the John Campea Show and on Open Mic, we take live questions, but sometimes we don't have time to get to all of the live questions that come in. But I want to make sure that when you send in those live questions, they do get answered on a video. So I take all those questions we didn't have time for, and I address them here on the companion video. So, with all that out of the way, let's get right to it and start getting caught up here. And we get things started here with the first question we're getting caught up on, and it comes to us from Max North, who writes, can Lucasfilm do anything to deter Star Wars toxicity? Yes and no. I mean, and there's three answers. Yes, no, and I don't know. So let me start with the I don't know. Well, no, let me start with the yes. Yes, there's something they can do. What is that thing they can do? I'm not really sure. That's why I don't make the big bucks as a Lucasfilm executive. And no, there's certain things they can't do. Because look, some of the Star Wars toxicity comes from a rooted place of racism, sexism, and homophobia. And there's nothing Lucasfilm can do about that. Like you guys remember, right from the first time the first trailer of The Force Awakens came out and you saw Finn, a black guy, woo, black guys in our neighborhood. And there was that whole boycott Force Awakens movement because Star Wars was apparently trying to eliminate the white race or all this kind of nonsense. Like, and so there is a segment of that that's really a part of that. I just put out a tweet too. I got into this online exchange with somebody who asked me, hey John, I know you've said that there are things about The Last Jedi you don't like, but so I'm wondering, like, why do you still like it overall? And it went back and forth, which ultimately ended in, you're just a fang-loving race traitor. I kid you not, that's exactly. So there's things they can do, things they can't do, because the things that are rooted in racism, all that kind of stuff, there's nothing they can do about. And there's the I don't know stuff. And I want to be very clear, like when we're talking about the Star Wars toxicity, we should never, and be very careful not to lump in anybody who just doesn't like the new Star Wars movies. Just not liking the new Star Wars movies is not toxicity. That's being a film fan. Because being a film fan doesn't mean you love everything. It means you love some things, you don't like other things, and that's fine. And we got to be careful not to lump in everybody who just really didn't like the new Star Wars movies in with that. That's not fair. And it shouldn't be done. We should also not fail to call out those who are engaging in creating a cancerous environment by attacking anybody who disagrees with them, by promoting the whole idea that this sucks because they've got black people in it and because they're doing like racism and all that kind of. We shouldn't tolerate any of that stuff. But at the same time, we shouldn't be lumping in. And there are people who are guilty of just lumping them all in together, and we shouldn't do that. So there's that. So look, all I know is that one of my biggest criticisms of Kathleen Kennedy as the head of Lucasfilm, and I have a huge amount of respect for Kathleen Kennedy. I do. Like when Steven Spielberg calls her like maybe one of the most gifted producers he's ever worked with, when George Lucas picks her to run, I mean, there's a lot there to respect. And I respect her a great deal, always have. But one of my big criticisms out of, over the past 6 months or so of Kathleen Kennedy has been an absolute refusal to do anything about the whole situation with the toxicity and the divisiveness in the Star Wars community. Exactly what she should do, I don't know. I haven't spent 2 weeks to sit down and think about it, so I don't have the answers. But I'm not the president of Lucasfilm. It's not my job to come up with something. I do know that doing nothing hasn't helped. And I know doing nothing has only perpetuated the problem. And I believe if she's going to be the leader of Lucasfilm, then she should probably exhibit some leadership. I don't know. Call me crazy. So, yeah, I do believe there are things they could do. I don't have the answers to what those are. And there's certain things that no matter what she wants to do, you can't do. Because there's certain things you can't change. But, yeah, I believe there's something they can do if they really want to and they decide, to ever stop thinking, it's not our place to do that. Maybe at some point you should get involved. Star Wars isn't like any other movie franchise. I don't necessarily think the head of Universal should get involved and lead the fan community of Fast and the Furious. I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying Kevin Feige needs to do things with, but Star Wars is a unique thing. It is the most celebrated film franchise of all time. And there's something really special about it. And I believe in a very unique situation like this, with a very unique franchise like that, I do believe there is some onus on the leadership of Lucasfilm. I mean, like, and you see it differently. I get it. That's fine. But, you know, you're asking me, so that's my opinion on it for now. All right, next question comes to us from Luke Woodward, who writes, you kind of changed my mind on that Rose and Finn scene. I didn't realize that it wouldn't have done anything if he flew into it. I thought she was stopping him from saving everyone. Okay, so this goes back to a topic that I believe we had on the John Campea show the other day, where, you know, somebody was saying, you know, the Rey and Finn stuff, not Rey and Finn, the Finn and Rose thing that really bothered them was the fact that Rose selfishly knocked Finn out of the way and stopped him from flying into the giant First Order cannon, right? And my response to that, it was just my opinion, but my response to that was, oh my God, I have a number, if you guys have listened to me at all, I have a number of issues with the way they handled Finn and Rose in The Last Jedi. I have a number of issues with that. Ironically, though, that scene where Rose knocks Finn out of the way is not one of the problems I have. I have several problems with those two characters in that movie, for sure. But that's not one of them. If anything, I thought that was the most redeemable thing that they did in the movie. Because to me, and again, this was all part of my perception. Your perception may have been different. But I thought the movie made it pretty clear. Poe was just pissed. And Poe was just acting in rage and anger and being fed up and all that kind of stuff. And I thought the movie made it clear. To me, the way it all played out, it was pretty clear that flying that dinky little wrecked up little speeder down the mouth of the cannon ultimately wasn't going to do anything. I thought it was just Finn desperate to do something like, screw you guys. And, you know, that's kind of how I interpret it. And I understood that. And I understood why the character would feel that way in that moment. But I felt like the movie made it pretty good without having some explain-o guy sit down and have to explain it all. I felt that the way the movie was set up and the way the scene was set, I thought it was pretty clear. Flying that little tin can into this giant monster energy cannon wasn't going to do anything. And it was just Finn trying to do anything because he's so fed up. Understanding that Finn flying into the mouth of that cannon wasn't going to accomplish anything. All it was going to do was kill him. It was just going to kill him. It wasn't going to stop the cannon. It wasn't going to wreck the cannon. It was just going to kill him. Understanding that, Rose did something fairly heroic by stopping him from needlessly just killing himself. Now, it changes things, because if I get it, like if you perceive that scene as being Finn was about to save the day and she stopped him from saving everybody, then yes, then I'd be with you 100%. 100%. That makes it an incredibly stupid thing that Rose did. But understanding it from my perception, that I think the movie made it pretty clear, him flying into that cannon wasn't going to do squat. It wasn't going to stop anything. It was just him in a moment of desperation and frustration wanting to do something. And Rose realized, you can't just die for nothing here. You can't just die for nothing. And she stopped him. So, on my big laundry list of things that frustrated me in The Last Jedi with the Rose and Finn characters, that just happened to, oddly enough, not be one of them. That was actually, I thought, one of the few redeeming things that they had the Rose character do. And that's why it worked for me like that. So I explained all that, and apparently I guess I turned Luke's thinking around. But again, I think I don't know that I'm right or wrong. I think it all comes down to your perception of the scene. If you saw the scene in such a way that you thought Finn flying that speeder into that cannon was actually going to save everybody, that would radically change your perception of what Rose did. If you believe like me that the movie lays it out that him flying that speeder into the cannon wasn't going to do anything, then that will also radically change your perception of what Rose did. So I guess it all depends on your perception of what the scene was setting up. Again, to me, I thought the movie made it clear him doing that wasn't going to do anything, so I saw her actions as heroic. Somebody else might see it that he was about to save everybody, and that would change your perception to what Rose did was ultimately selfish. And I guess it just all depends on how you view the scene. So I saw it as actually being the one actually really heroic thing she does in the movie. But that's just the way I saw it. Okay, next. Der Wunderbar writes, Gary Oldman is also an apex actor. Oh, of that I'll have no disagreement on that. No disagreement. Finally, we can say Academy Award-winning actor Gary Oldman. He was, and remember this started a discussion for a long time, but there's no doubt to me, he was the best actor in the world not to have an Oscar on his mantle. And that was Gary Oldman. He was the best actor in the world that did not have an Oscar on his mantle. That's now been taken care of. Now there's an Oscar on his mantle. That he got for, what was the name of the Winston Churchill movie? Darkest Hour? Is that what? The movie was freaking brilliant, and Oldman was freaking fantastic in it. So that started a big debate then after he won that. Okay, now who's the best actor in the world without an Oscar? And that's still up for debate, and it's a good question to have. Sid Vicious writes, Gyllenhaal seems to want an Oscar. After Prince of Persia, Love and Other Drugs, he seems to be playing only dark/depressing roles. A 180 turn. What could be the reason? I don't think so at all. I think he's just playing roles that he thinks are challenging and good to play. Hold a second. Jake, Gyllenhaal, IMDb. Let me just look down the list of what we've got here for Jake. So, Love and Other Drugs, I actually got, I'm not going to lie, I got a little bit of a kick out of that. Let's see. Southpaw was just a boxing movie. I don't think that was like a dark, depressing thing. There's some harsh things out. Source Code wasn't a dark, depressing thing. I mean, there were moments of dark, depressing for sure. Prince of Persia was just awful. By the way, Prince of Persia was just awful. Awful movie. End of Watch wasn't a totally dark, depressing thing. Let's see. Southpaw, Everest. His character wasn't a dark, depressing character in Everest. Which one was this one again? Which one was... Oh, yeah, that's right. Demolition. Let's see. Nocturnal Animals. That one was a dark one. That one was plenty dark. You know what? I didn't like that one nearly as much as a lot of people did. Okja, I didn't think he played a dark, depressing character in Okja. Stronger, he played really more of an inspirational character in Stronger. So, yeah, I don't know, Sid. I don't think I agree with your assessment. I'm not denouncing your assessment. I mean, that's the way you see it. That's cool. I just don't see it the same way when I actually look down his filmography. Joe Clem 15 writes, live-action Sailor Moon film with diverse Asian women. What? I don't understand. What's the question? I'm not quite sure, Joe, what you're asking. Are you asking, should they do it? Are you asking, would it work? Are you asking, well, okay, let's go with, would it work? Probably not. It probably wouldn't work for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't think anime is nearly as popular with the general movie-going audience as people who are into anime seem to think it would be. And I think we've seen time and time again that it's proved that the general wider movie-going audience doesn't really care. And maybe we need something to come along to change that trend, and maybe a Sailor Moon could be it. But I don't know that would be it. So, but again, Joe, I'm not sure what question it is you're asking, so I'm not quite sure how to answer it, unfortunately. Joe Clem follows it up with, why hasn't a District 10 movie been made? Nobody thought it was worth it. I mean, look, the interesting thing about District 10, or about District 9, I should say. Hold on, let me just bring this up. 9 box office. Yeah, District 9 made $210 million on, if I'm not mistaken, like a $30 million budget. Yeah, $30 million budget. It made $210 million on a $30 million budget. Why they never did another one after that is completely beyond me. I have theories, pardon me, but that's all they are theories. Because I thought maybe they didn't think they could do it for that cheap again. It is crazy with all the visual effects in that movie that they made that movie for $30 million. Why some movies that come out today cost $180 million and District 9 costs 30. Now, I know there's some special circumstances, but it proves you don't need to spend that much money to make a good movie. I don't know if they thought the novelty would have worn off and people wouldn't come back to watch District 10. I can't believe they'd think that. So I honestly am not really sure. I think maybe Neil Blomkamp wanted to do other things. So he did Elysium, didn't work out so well. Did Chappie, didn't work out so well. Now maybe nobody's interested in funding him to doing this. Although Neil Blomkamp apparently is now doing a RoboCop sequel. So we'll see how that all turns out. But honestly, it's a good question. Why was District 10 not made? It's a question that a lot of people asked. The cost to box office ratio was favorable. People liked the film. Critics liked the film. They should have done one. They really should have. Let's see. Or maybe just, maybe Neil Blomkamp doesn't want a sequel to it. And it's his. District 9 is Neil Blomkamp's. It's his creation. He didn't just direct it. He created that whole thing. Because it came out of a short film that he did years prior to that. And, maybe it's just, no, District 9 was never meant to have a sequel. It's meant as a one-shot story, and I don't want to do another one. I don't know that that's the case, but if it is, then more power to him. If it was a studio stopping him from doing it, I can't understand why they would. There seems to be money to be made there, so it's a good question, dude. All right, CJ Adams writes, loved Ant-Man and Wasp, yeah, me too, but felt Scott Lang, who was supposed to be smart and have a master's in electrical engineering, was treated relatively stupid, unlike the first. I disagree. I think you might have mentioned this before, CJ, but I never once felt at all like they were making Scott out to be dumb. Look, there's an immaturity about Scott. For sure there is, but that was easily in the first one as well. Which probably contributes to him making poor life choices. Look, he's a smart dude who got into burglaring and ended up being in jail. Clearly, this is a guy who makes bad decisions, right? And he's smart, but sometimes smart and wisdom are two different things. Sometimes being smart and being wise are two different things. And Scott, even in the first one, didn't necessarily ever show that wisdom was his greatest asset. Smart dude, a good dude, not always wise. And I never once thought in Ant-Man and the Wasp, I saw the immaturity and the silliness and mistakes he makes, but I never once ever felt like they passed him off as being stupid. I just feel like if you looked at it that way, maybe you're misinterpreting it. But then again, who am I to tell you how you perceive the movie? If you perceived it that way, you perceived it that way. But all I can say is that I never once perceived it in that light. I always just perceived it that they were playing off, a little bit of his immaturity, which they've always showed that he's had. A tendency to sometimes make poor decisions, which he's always had from the get-go of the series. But also he saves the day. And he is smart. And I just didn't see it the same way, CJ. I guess that's the beautiful thing about film, right? We all look at art, like a film, and we all can see different things that the next person beside us doesn't see. And maybe that's the case here. All right, next up comes to us from Robert Perez, who writes, Sam Jackson looks really good as Glass. Oh, I gotta completely agree. And now look, it's just a still image. It's just an out-of-context still image. What Robert's talking about is that first official picture that came out of Samuel L. Jackson in that slick purple suit in his wheelchair, right? Looks awesome. Now, it's just a still image. And we're seeing it completely out of context, and it says nothing about how good or bad the movie will be. But, just talking about the picture, it's a damn good picture. I just got giddy looking at it. He looks so damn slick. I like it a lot. So I agree with you, Robert. All right, next up, Robert follows up with, enjoy your weekend, John. Thanks for what you do. Thank you so much. Obviously, Robert sent this in just before the weekend, and I did. I had a wonderful weekend, a really good time. Anne came back from Rhode Island after her business trip was done. She was gone an entire week. It was good to have her back. So thank you very much. I did enjoy myself. All right, next up, Samba Tron 5678 writes, I love the Devil film. Really great film. So the Devil film he's talking about, I believe, is that movie Devil that was produced by, not directed by, but produced by M. Night Shyamalan. And we've talked about this movie a little bit in recent days because, M. Night seems to be having a bit of a resurgence. And we would talk about how things got so bad, like for M. Night, the Shamhammer, as I affectionately call him, things got so bad for the Shamhammer that I remember when Devil was coming out, being in a theater, and I told this story the other day, and like the trailer was playing for this movie Devil, and it says, and then up on the screen comes, from producer M. Night Shyamalan, and the entire audience laughed. The entire audience started laughing hysterically. That's ouch. That's ouch. That's not a good thing. That's a bad. And that's how bad it got. But you know what? He put out that little movie called The Visit, which was a solid little movie. If you haven't seen The Visit, check it out. It's a solid little film. And then came Split, another solid offering. And now he's got Glass coming out. And if Glass is as good as Split or better, you're now talking 3 in a row. That's called a winning streak. You're now talking 3 in a row. And I think it's fair to say M. Night's back. If he lands it with Glass, I'd say he's back. Because once you knock out 3 in a row, it's hard to put out one good movie. It's very difficult to put out 2 in a row. It's astronomical when you put out 3 good movies in a row. That's why there's only handfuls of directors who can ever say they've done that. You knock out 3 really good films in a row, that's a winning streak in your back. Now, as far as the Devil movie itself goes, it's not bad. It's not. I thought it was kind of a cheap ending, to be honest with you. But in general, it's not bad. You know, a bunch of people get caught in an elevator and one of them's the devil. And everybody's trying to figure out which one of us in this elevator is the devil. I mean, I'm oversimplifying the movie, but, you know, there it is. It's not a bad little movie. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was not bad. But again, M. Night didn't direct it, but he was a producer on it. Marcus Skiles writes, John, please look up Deadpool Musical on YouTube parody. It's amazing. You know what? I believe I started watching because I saw a bunch of people tweeting about it. And I watched about 5 minutes of it. And I turned it off. I don't even think I got 5 minutes into it and I turned it off. But maybe if I hung in there with it, I would have kind of tuned into it and maybe I would have started appreciating it. But you know what, Marcus? Maybe I'll give it another shot. Just because you asked, I'll give it another shot. And then Marcus follows up with, check out the first one and the second. Oh, I didn't realize there was a second one. So maybe I will check out the second one too. Thanks, Marcus. All right. Devontae Brown writes, yes, John, we want Widow to be there born. LOL. Okay, so this is coming from the other day. We were talking about how, you know, Black Widow has now hired on a director. For those of you who didn't hear about this, they've hired on a director for a Black Widow movie. Now, that doesn't mean the movie's greenlit yet. It's not. But they are clearly moving forward. They're developing at this point. They've got a director in place. They're getting some things in place. And then ultimately Marvel will make a decision whether to greenlight it or not. But they're clearly moving forward. I have never wanted either a Hawkeye or a Black Widow movie in the standalone. I love both of those characters. I love seeing them throughout all the MCU. I think they contribute a ton to the movies, but I like them as supporting characters. And, you know, to me, when you're talking about an MCU, now look, again, I say this every time because I still have people write to me about this. I get it. Batman doesn't have superpowers. Batman is the exception. Batman is Batman. There's just something. Black Widow is not Batman. Hawkeye is not Batman. Okay? Let's just be clear about that. Batman is the one exception to this. But in an MCU that is filled with gods and these people with the powers of like the cosmos in them, and then you got a dude with a bow and arrow and a girl who's really good at karate. Now, the complexities of the characters go beyond that. I am oversimplifying it. I admit that. But, you know, on a base level, I'm not interested in seeing their solo movie. And what I said was, just go watch a Jason Bourne movie. If all you want to see is a spy movie, go watch Jason Bourne. Go watch 007. You know, go watch John Krasinski's, what's his new TV series? Ryan. Jack Ryan. Go watch Jack Ryan. Like, you don't need the MCU to have a spy thriller movie with somebody with no powers who's just a spy. You can do that you don't need to do that in the MCU. You can do that outside of the MCU. You can make any movie you want with that. So my argument was, and maybe it wasn't a great argument, okay, but my argument was, like, you have something very special here in the MCU where you can do all these fantastical things that you can't do outside of comic book movies. Use those movies for that. If all you want is a average human person who just happens to be a spy and you want to do well, you can make that outside of the MCU. I don't need that in the MCU. But I started hearing from a lot of people when I brought up the Bourne thing. I've had people tell me, John, that's exactly, I want a Jason Bourne in the MCU. That's exactly it. So maybe my argument is not so good because it's actually turned more and more people against me that do want to have it. Fair enough. I mean, I still stand my ground. I'm not interested in either Hawkeye or a Black Widow standalone movie. I'm very interested in seeing them in all the other MCU films. I'm just not interested in seeing a movie that revolves around them. But that's just me. Lycon Zero writes, I voted not now on a Black Widow movie, but after hearing you speak on it, I want to change my vote to yes, because I do want to see, here's another one, Lycon is another one. Yes, I do want to see a Jason Bourne MCU film. There's the point. There it is. Just made the point that I think my argument had the counter effect. I thought I made my argument to try to make you guys see why we don't need a Black Widow movie, and what my argument actually did was just convince more of you that we do need it, so there you go. I'm not very good at this. Okay, next one. Beast Gaming writes, I was wondering what concession discounts are included with AMC A-List. I just signed up, but was unable to find specifics on food and drink benefits. Okay, good question. So one of the things that is a great benefit for a program like AMC A-List is you get discounts on concessions. But where are these discounts, you may ask? Okay, so here's what it is. When you become an A-List member, which is $20 a month, you automatically get all the benefits of being an AMC Prime Stubs member. Okay, so I have been an AMC Stubs member for years because with an AMC Stubs, which costs, I think, $12 a year, it was $12 a year, you accumulated all these points. Like for every $100 you spent, you got $10 in credit. So you got 10%. So for every $100 you spent on movie tickets, concession stands, whatever, you got credit. And then when you spent $100, you got $10 in credit that you could spend on movie tickets or spend on concession stands or spend on whatever. Also, one of the other big benefits of being a Stubs member was that you got free upgrades on your concessions. So if I want a large soda, what I would do is say, yeah, I'd like to order a medium soda, but upgrade that to large. And I'd like to order a small popcorn, but upgrade that to medium because I'm a Stubs member. And you get those free upgrades. So if I want a large soda, let's say I wanted a large soda and a large popcorn, all I'm actually paying for is a medium soda and a medium popcorn. So like every time I was going to the movies, I was saving like $2 more right there. I went to the movies 3 times that week. I saved $6, just like that. Extrapolate that over the year, plus every $100 I was spending. So I looked at my Stubs account one time, and it's like, you have accumulated like $380 in rewards, $380 in rewards, and you have accumulated like somewhere in the neighborhood of $118 in concession stand fees, and it was like in a year and a half or 2 years. It was crazy. So it was great. So what happens is, as an A-List member, you automatically get those same benefits, particularly at the concession stand. You get those same concession stand benefits as a Stubs member. So you get free upgrades in your soda and your popcorn. And if you're somebody like me that you always get soda and popcorn when you go to the movies, that adds up. So that's the benefit. Maybe I'm forgetting other benefits, but that's the best I can do off the top of my head. Okay, next up comes us from, where is it? Zaya, who writes, hey, John, do you watch the Enemies? The Emmys? Not usually, no. If so, who should or will win comedy series? Atlanta, Marvelous Miss Maisel, or Blackish? Well, I'll tell you which one should. It's the Marvelous Miss Maisel. It is a revelation. Anne and I were back in Canada over Christmas, and Amazon had just released this new series of theirs, The Marvelous Miss Maisel. And I just thought it looked strange. I never bothered. But I guess Anne watched 1 or 2 episodes while I was sleeping or something. And she told me the next day, she goes, John, you've got to watch this. I'm like, all right, let's watch it. I watched the first episode, hooked. Some of the most hilarious writing in a comedy I've seen in a long time. Crisp, sharp, funny writing. Like, just incredible. And the girl, I can't remember the name of the actress. The girl who plays the lead is outstanding. And her father in the show is Tony Shalhoub, the guy from Monk, and he was in Wings, and he does the voice of Master Splinter in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. Tony Shalhoub is awesome. So he plays her dad in it, and he's amazing. Just amazing. Atlanta is a very good show, but I'll tell you what, I did not think season 2 of Atlanta was as good as season 1. I really liked Atlanta season 1. I did not find season 2 to be as good, and certainly not as funny. They went a more serious route on a lot of their episodes. There were some very funny moments in season 2, don't get me wrong. But overall, I didn't quite like season 2 as much as I like season 1. I've never been a fan of Blackish, to be honest with you, but that Marvelous Miss Maisel, holy crap, it's so good. So good. It should win. I don't know much else about the Emmys, but I'm going to say Marvelous Miss Maisel should probably win. Okay. Dom How to Make writes, there's new shots for TFB movie showing 2 cons. Red one is called Shatter. Girl con... Shatter and Dropkick. Okay, these are Transformers. Okay, folks, please, when you write in stuff, please read over what you're writing and say, well, would an average person just read this and know what I'm talking about? Because if I didn't already know that 2 of the new Decepticons in the Bumblebee movie were called Shatter and Dropkick, I would have no idea what this message was about. There's new shots for TFB movie showing 2 cons. Red one is like, what? Okay, so Decepticons, got it. Red one is called Shatter, Girl Con, and the other one is Dropkick, which is a guy. Both triple changers. I've seen the pictures. You know what? Here's the thing. I love the first Transformers movie. I do. However, one of the criticisms that was leveled against the original Transformers movie, which was a fair criticism and has been a criticism that has been repeated over all the Transformers movies, is that they make a lot of the Transformers look very generic. Like, you look at a bunch of Autobots or Decepticons and you'll have no idea who you're looking at. I mean, you'll know who you're looking at when you're looking at Bumblebee. You know who you're looking at when you're looking at Optimus Prime. But a lot of the times, like in some of the big battle scenes, like, I have no idea if that's an Autobot, if that's a Decepticon. I have no idea who that is. I have no idea, because they look so bloody generic. They look like just a big mess of metal. And I'll be honest with you, when I saw the picture of Shatter and Dropkick, I just was like, yep, they look like 2 Transformers. Giant, nondescript, metal all over the place characters that you can't really distinguish one from the other. So I'll be honest, I wasn't really big on it. I wasn't really big on the picture. It's good. That doesn't mean the movie's not going to be awesome. We got the director of Kubo and the Two Strings directing it, which should give us all a lot of hope. But I got to say, the image itself didn't do a lot for me. But again, it's just a picture out of context. The movie might be awesome. I have some hope for it because of who the director is. So let's keep our fingers crossed and see how it turns out. Okay, next one comes to us from Levi Pegler, who writes, who do you think could play a good Two-Face? Well, I mean, anybody who watches me for any period of time, you know exactly what I'm about to say. I don't care. As long as it's a good actor, anybody. Any good actor could play good Two-Face. That's just it. I really don't have any specific things, as long as it's somebody who's a good actor. If it's a good actor, I'm all for them. Anybody can play good Two-Face. Mel Gibson could play a great Two-Face. Chiwetel Ejiofor could play a great Two-Face. Jake Gyllenhaal could play a great Two-Face. Joaquin Phoenix could play a great Two-Face. Patrick Stewart could play a great Two-Face. Hugh Jackman could play a great Two-Face. Denzel Washington could play a great Two-Face. Jamie Foxx could play a great Two-Face. On and on and on. As long as it's a good actor, anybody can play a good Two-Face. So that's kind of the way I see things. Taff3 Full writes, Black Panther or The Dark Knight, which do you think is a better film? Honestly, look, first of all, I love Black Panther. If you've seen my review of it, you know I adore this film. I think it's fantastic. What the performances in it, the character development in it, the mythology behind what Wakanda is in it, fantastic. Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger was one of the strongest, probably before Thanos, he was the best villain we've had since Loki in the MCU. He was fantastic. Chadwick Boseman was remarkable as T'Challa. I loved it. I thought it was great. But The Dark Knight is the better film. I think Black Panther, there's an argument, is in the top 10 comic book movies of all time. There's very little doubt that The Dark Knight is in the top 3. A lot of people will say number 1, a bunch of people say number 2, some people might say number 3, but there is no question that The Dark Knight's in the top 3. I think you'll find, if you did a poll of 10,000 movie fans, or 10,000 comic book movie fans, I think you would find very safely that The Dark Knight will come in the top 3. And may very well, with a lot of people, come in at number 1. The original Avengers movie is still my number 1, but I think a lot of people would say it's the number 1. So while I personally adore, and me saying that personally, to me, The Dark Knight is the better film, that is not a knock or a slight on Black Panther whatsoever. Nor is it a knock or a slight on any of the other great comic book movies we've ever had over time. It's no knock on Captain America Winter Soldier. It's no knock on X-Men 2. It's no knock on Spider-Man 2. It's no knock on Iron Man. It's no knock on any other film. But the only ones that I think that come close, I think, is the Avengers, maybe Logan, would compete. I honestly think probably the 3 best comic book movies of all time, in whatever order you want to put them in, are Logan, Dark Knight, and the original Avengers. But, you ask 1,000 people, you get 1,000 different answers. But I feel very, very safe in saying, if you surveyed 10,000 comic book movie fans, I think very, very safely you'll find that The Dark Knight comes in over Black Panther. Now, if it's still all subjective. I mean, if you like Black Panther more, then you like Black Panther more. Nothing wrong with that. But since you're asking me, there's maybe 2 or 3 movies ever made in the comic book genre that I think could legitimately compete with The Dark Knight for the crown of best comic book movie ever made. And Black Panther's not one of those. But Black Panther is arguably a top 10 ever made, but yeah, I not a top 3 to me, and The Dark Knight without question is in that top 3. But again, that you asked me, that's just my opinion. Your opinion is your opinion, and it's every bit as valid as mine. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the companion video. Thanks so much for being here. Now, look, if you're somebody who's still waiting on one of your questions to get answered, and you're like, wait a minute, my question wasn't in the companion video. I still actually have about 70 more. Well, not 70, maybe about 40 to 50 more to go. So I still have a couple more companion videos to do. So I will definitely get to those over the next day or 2 before I get out to Comic-Con. So don't worry, if you haven't seen your question asked yet, it's probably still in my queue over here, and we will get to it. So don't you worry. All right, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the companion video. Thank you so much for being here. My name is John Campion, and until my next video, bye-bye.